Hey guys, I hope you all are having a great day today, but we got an interesting video again. So the last wrestling topic we broke down was Brock Lesnar's supposed WWE return a year after he walked away from the company in 2005. Now there was another huge debut that could have been on the horizon for 2005, and if both of these returns / debuts would have happened, the WWE landscape could have changed forever. And this second debut is a man who's a multiple-time WCW World Champion, the icon, so to speak, of WCW, the icon of World Championship Wrestling in the man they call Sting. So I know Sting ended up coming into the WWE, debuting at Survivor Series 2014. He had a match against Triple H at WrestleMania 31, which was, it was cool, it was nice for what it was, but obviously Triple H went over. Again, putting the nail in the coffin and burying World Championship Wrestling a little bit more than they did before. He had another match against Seth Rollins where Seth Rollins actually landed a buckle bomb the wrong way and had a, career-ending injury for Sting, but now he's back in All Elite Wrestling and he's able to compete in the ring. But even though the 2014 run in the WWE for Sting is something that fans had wanted for so long, it didn't go as planned, and a lot of people thought that it was kind of a complete waste of time. Now, a lot of people believed that Sting would be part of that 2/21/11 vignette and everything that was leading up to WrestleMania 27 in 2011. The multiple vignettes, the mystery of the entire, campaign. A lot of people believed that that was Sting who was going to show up on Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania 27 and then give the fans the dream match that they always wanted, which was a match against the Phenom, the Dead Man, the Demon of Death Valley, in The Undertaker. Now, The Undertaker versus Sting is something that fans have wanted for so long. It's the biggest missed opportunity in the history of WWE, in my opinion. Sting versus The Undertaker, two dark figures, the Brandon Lee-esque Crow character of Sting going up against the Demon of Death Valley, the Phenom, the Dead Man, the Undertaker. It was a perfect clash of styles and a perfect crescendo of darkness and mystery that could have just given the fans everything that they wanted for both of these characters. It's the biggest dream match and the biggest, like I said, it's the biggest missed opportunity that the WWE ever had, and we thought that maybe in 2011 we were going to finally get it. Obviously, that isn't what happened, and it ended up being Triple H who showed up as Undertaker came out on Raw, and then it would go on to be Triple H versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 27, which was a callback and a rematch from WrestleMania 17, and then they would go on to have the end of an era match with Shawn Michaels as a special guest referee at WrestleMania 28 inside a Hell in a Cell. Now, those matches in and of themselves were absolutely fantastic. I have nothing but positive things to say about the WrestleMania 27 and WrestleMania 28 matches between the Game and the Dead Man. But just imagine what it could have been if you heard Sting's music and the orchestra play throughout the arena, and Sting got on the stage and did his war cry as The Undertaker was standing in the middle of the ring. He took his hat off and they both stared each other down. The icon, the master of the Scorpion Death Drop versus the Demon of Death Valley, the Dead Man, and the master of the Tombstone Piledriver. It's everything that the fans have ever wanted. Obviously, that's not what we got. But there was an opportunity for Sting to come to the WWE following the failed invasion angle of WCW and the WWF in 2001. Now, there were some good moments inside this invasion angle in the WWF. WWF versus WCW versus ECW. It wasn't all bad, but a lot of the big names, a lot of the main event players from WCW didn't make their way over during this invasion. There was no Sting. There was no Bill Goldberg until 2003. There was no Lex Luger. There was no Steiner Brothers. A lot of the big names from WCW would later go on to be in the WWE, but it wouldn't be till years later. And Sting was the biggest missed opportunity, and that was the name that WWF at the time and WWE later on in 2005 wanted to get the most out of anybody from World Championship Wrestling. Now, on a Ross Report episode from May 23rd, 2020, Jim Ross would sit down with Steve Borden and talk about these missed opportunities for the WWE and why Sting didn't come to the WWF following the invasion angle. And this is what Sting had to say. I talked to Vince McMahon, and he was really good to me. But I just got this feeling that he did it, I'll put it this way. all the guys from WCW that went to WWE when the acquisition happened, by then to me that wasn't a real WCW. Because WCW was for so many years. It was Hall and Nash. It was Hogan. It was Sting. It was Luger. It was the Steiner brothers. It was, a certain package of guys that were gone. That was an article from essentiallysports.com. In another interview, Sting would go on to say the following about a brief interaction between The Rock and the debuting WCW champion at the time in Booker T. They come back to back and they turn around and they look at each other, and The Rock just looks at Booker T and he said, "Who are you?" And that one little comment was all it took to just bury somebody, in my opinion. Bury someone like Booker T. And lets the world know that you're a WCW guy, you're a peon here, and it's going to require lots of work for a guy like Booker T to try and come back. But he did it because he's a talented guy. And after all the years I'd put into wrestling, at that point, it just seemed like too much of a gamble to me. In an article from RepublicWorld.com, Jim Ross would continue to speak about the proposed dream match between The Rock and Sting, which almost took place at WrestleMania 21 in Hollywood. Here is what the article had to say. Jim Ross said that The Rock was ready to work with Sting at WrestleMania 21. The match would have been one of the most iconic matches and would have gathered a lot of views. Jim Ross said that he talked to a lot of bookers during that time, and they claimed that everyone in the company was talking about the icon Sting versus The Rock. And again, that was from RepublicWorld.com. Continuing with the article in regards to this proposed dream match, here is what Jim Ross had to say. Rock knew in his heart that he could get a great match out of Sting, who had been dormant for quite a while, and I believe that too. So anyhow, yeah, it was a topic that we talked about. While talking about Jim Ross's comments on the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer had the following to say. He stated that The Rock told him that he wants to face Sting, Macho Man Randy Savage, or Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania. In the end, The Rock didn't feature at any match at WrestleMania 21. Apart from Sting, Rey Mysterio was a big contender to potentially face off against the Brahma Bull in Hollywood. That was again from RepublicWorld.com. Although Sting versus The Rock, the icon versus the great one, didn't ever occur in the WWE ring, or inside the squared circle at all for that matter, there were a couple other proposed dream matches that could have taken place for Sting's debut inside the company. Two other matches that were mentioned were one at WrestleMania 18 against the Olympic gold medalist in Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle had said in a couple interviews, and I don't have the exact quotes here, so I'm just going to have to go off my memory. He did say that there was a plan in place for Sting to debut at the 2002 WrestleMania 18 and take on the Olympic gold medalist. It's something that Kurt Angle was definitely into, but it eventually just didn't come to terms. I think there was contractual disputes with WWE, Vince McMahon, Sting, and the creative team at the time, so that never happened. And then, as you know, Kurt Angle would go on to face the Big Red Machine, Kane, at that show, but it could have been Sting. And then, one more time, the following year at WrestleMania 19, it was proposed that Stone Cold Steve Austin would be confronted by the icon Sting at the end of WrestleMania 19. Or it could have potentially been, which was also rumored, a full-on match between the Texas Rattlesnake and Stone Cold Steve Austin and the icon Sting at 2003's WrestleMania 19. So imagine if we would have gotten Sting versus The Rock, Sting versus Kurt Angle, or Sting versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Man, that's just crazy to think about when you really look back on it. Another dream match that I think would have been cool for Sting if he were to debut in the WWE at the time of like 2002 and 2003 would have been a match against the Big Red Machine, Kane. I know everybody talks about Sting versus The Undertaker, and it was maybe going to be Sting versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 18, but Sting versus the Big Red Machine, at WrestleMania 18, or even if it was at a different pay-per-view, Sting versus Kane would be badass. I mean, that would have been so cool to see. And like I said, I know Sting versus The Undertaker is what everybody talks about in the big dream match that everybody wanted, and I agree with that talk. But Sting versus Kane at the time is another match that I feel like doesn't get enough praise and doesn't get talked about enough, like in a possible what-if scenario. I think that would have been awesome. I know it doesn't really go with any stories, but it definitely fits into the mold here in what we're discussing. And that's kind of as long as the story goes and as far as the story goes on a proposed Sting debut from 2002 through 2005. Potential proposed matches at WrestleMania 18, 19, and 21 were all on the table at some point. Matches against Kurt Angle, the Olympic gold medalist. matches against the Brahma Bull in The Rock and matches against the Texas Rattlesnake and Stone Cold Steve Austin are matches that could have changed the entire landscape of professional wrestling and could have changed the WWE forever. And I talked about that earlier in the video, but it's true. And like I said, we did get Sting at a certain point, which you have to be grateful for. But we never got Sting versus The Undertaker, and we never got the true run that Sting should have deserved in his debut in the WWE. And he never got the recollection or the attention that I feel like a character as valuable as Sting was to professional wrestling, especially the Brandon Lee Crow-esque, character that he portrayed from around 96 through 99. It never got enough praise as it did. And I just feel like that was, like I said, one of the biggest missed opportunities in the WWE. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed me looking back at the potential run that a Sting character or that Sting could have had in the WWE at the time, and how there was a proposed match between The Rock and Sting for WrestleMania 21. In a guest booker rebooking the Invasion angle Jim Cornette DVD that was released a few years back, I think it was released back in like 2009, 2010. I could be wrong, and you can look up the release date for yourself. He proposed a match card for WrestleMania 18, and I believe on that match card he had a match between The Rock and Sting. So although it doesn't go together, if you go back and look at that guest booker DVD with Jim Cornette, he actually did book Sting versus The Rock, which I thought was an interesting topic to include in this video because that was kind of the majority of what we were discussing when it came to the what-if moments in Sting's potential run in the WWE from 2002 through 2005. And that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this what-if scenario, and what if Sting did face The Rock at WrestleMania 21? What if he did debut in 2002, 2003, or 2005? These are stories and, opportunities that the WWE/WWF had, and it's always interesting to go back and look upon them. We did Brock Lesnar's 2005 run. We've now talked about Sting, and I'll look to include more videos like this if they do well, and I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, drop a Scorpion Death drop on the like button, and a Scorpion Death lock on the subscribe button.